Hello and welcome to the second season of Unordinary People. If you're returning, thank you much for returning. If, this is your first time here, thanks for coming. Remember to like and subscribe if you like what the videos are. Be sure to share them with people because word of mouth is very important. And I just want to spread the stories of the people that I interview. And as long as we're spreading that, I also have social media. So Unordinary People on Facebook and Instagram is where I post like upcoming interviews and little things like that. Sometimes I promote other people who've been on the show's thing. And other than that, just go ahead and enjoy season 2. We're kicking off the first episode with a local artist called Odessa Helm. Thank you. Odessa Helm is a native of Rusk, ASL translator, and mural artist. A warm and personable spirit, her work can be seen all across East Texas with its bold graphical style, harkening back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s. In our extremely enjoyable conversation, we talk art, creativity, education, and mental health. I sincerely hope you will join me as we meet Odessa Helm. So I'm here in Jacksonville and Postmasters with Odessa Helm. She's a local artist from Rusk, Texas, and I thought she'd be somebody interesting. We can dig into her background and everything, and it turns out we actually knew each other from college, so that's cool. So I'll let her introduce herself.
Yeah, my name's Odessa Helm. I am from Rusk. I was born and raised there. I graduated high school there, went to college in Tyler at TJC, and now I paint murals full time. So let's start with how did you get into art? Like how did that start with you? So I've always been like a artistic person. I've always drawn, done creative stuff, but it was kind of funny. I told some of my friends that I was looking for a wall to paint. I just told them, I was like, if you see a wall someone would let me paint a mural on, let me know. And I'd never painted one before, and I was never a big painter. I always drew. And then the city of Tyler came out with a call to artist there's an art alley in downtown Tyler.
Yeah.
And Amber Verona is over it. She's the downtown art director for Main Street. And I applied for it, painted my first mural, learned a lot, made a bunch of mistakes through that one, and then I had my Instagram handle in the bottom corner, and I just started having people reach out to me from that, and that was in January of 2020 that I painted that, and I painted all that year, and then I ended up, that was January 2021. And then I ended up quitting my full-time job in September because I had gotten so busy from painting. So
it just kind of took off, huh?
Yeah, just kind of, in September, I started back at the semester because I was working at TJC and UT Tyler. I started back and I was like, this is way too much. I'm going to have to decide. So I just decided to go for it. And so it's been a little over a year now since I started painting full time, and I love it. I will, if I can ever help it, I will not stop. Painting. I will keep doing it. Yes.
Yeah. So you mentioned the drawing and stuff.
Yeah.
So because you've got a very graphical kind of advertising style.
Yes. Uh-huh.
What was it always that, or what was the first things you started drawing?
Not at all. It's so weird because whenever I would draw, it would just be pencil and pen. I never used color. I never did paint. And it would just be dots. I did a lot of floral stuff and landscapey things. And then I'm not a huge color person. And then I started painting murals, and my style completely changed from black and white to crazy bright colors and doing a lot of graphic and color blocking. And in the beginning, too, I was designing the murals, by hand on paper. And that's not very forgiving. You can't make changes, especially when you're working with a client to try to get their mural how they want it. So I started using an iPad to draw on or to come up with my designs on, and it makes such a huge difference. So I think that was kind of my transition into the like graphic world. And so since I started doing that, I've actually started doing a lot more like graphic work too. I've done a couple designs for places so they could get like t-shirts made it, and I'm doing most recent one is an elevator wrap. Like I designed an elevator wrap for someone, so it's just kind of transitioned from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just wondering, like, what sort of inspiration did you take when you started making your own style?
Man, I don't know. It ended up just kind of happening. I'm very much a mental health advocate. I'm very much about just taking a moment out of your day to like enjoy something and breathe. And so and that was something with like public art, especially with murals, that was something that really kind of was in my head and drives me every time I paint something, is I want it to like make someone pause and to be able to look at, even if it's just for 10 seconds or maybe like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, just to like pause. And so that's something that really like inspires me and drives me behind all of my projects, is trying to get people to just enjoy something for just a moment every day, even if it's just for a minute. But
So, was there like, so like your creative process, I guess. So is there any looking at other people's art or anything like that? Or is it just...
Yes. So it's so funny too, because when I started, I had like no idea what I was doing with murals, because it's a weird thing to get into. So I had like, other than, there's not just a ton of mural artists, especially in this area. There's Judy Siemens here in Jacksonville. There's Dotsa Kid and Tyler, and
I've interviewed her. How's it going, Dotsa?
Yeah. I listened to that interview. She's great. She's so nice. And so obviously those are two local artists who like were such big like inspirations like here locally. But then I ended up finding a ton of mural artists online that I was using them as resources too. They would do live videos, and I would get on there and just be like, what kind of paint do you use for this type of wall? Or have you ever had this situation? So, and that's how I was able to come up with good pricing, good outreach. And I've had weird paint requests before. I had to paint on a vehicle one time, and I was on there messaging people, what kind of paint do you use for this? So I use that as a resource, but then I also, I'll just look up, like if it's for a coffee shop that I'm painting for, I'll look up coffee shop murals or coffee shop art just to kind of like get some inspiration that way. And then I'll use those elements to kind of like help me like come up with like my creative process to get to a drawing for a place. I usually give about 3 drawing options for a business or for a town, whoever I'm painting for. And then we go from there. Like we have like our revision process, all that kind of fun stuff.
How hard is it for you to do the revisions?
It's the initial drawing that's usually hard. The revisions aren't bad. Usually that process goes quick.
Yeah.
But it's that initial, because sometimes you'll go to places or I'll meet with people and all they know is they want a mural, and that's it. That's all the information you get. So a lot of times the drawings that I'm giving people are like I'm trying to take their creative thoughts, and just like put it on paper for them. And so it's challenging sometimes. Sometimes I've had places tell me they loved the very first drawing I sent them, and that's what we went with. And I've also provided 10 drawings for places before until we got to like the perfect thing for them. So it's a process. It's fun though. I love it.
So you don't get discouraged by the like rejection?
No, not at all. I tell them, I always tell people, I'm like, keep in mind, this is your mural. It's like, it's not for me, so I'm not going to get my feelings hurt. I'm just trying to do whatever you're wanting. So if you're not 100% happy, like, tell me and we'll fix it. And I like the revision process. It's almost like, I don't know if you did this when you were a kid, but I would ask like my siblings or my dad to give me something to draw, and so give you like a prompt. So that's kind of what it feels like, that people will give me something to draw and it kind of challenges me to come up with it, and then even through the revision it's just fun. Like I enjoy doing it.
So do you ever feel like, because I'm just thinking about when I draw sometimes, and like if I'm trying to force an idea that I don't fully have, it doesn't turn out well. And then sometimes it's just an idea will come to me and it's one of my favorite drawing.
Yes.
So do you struggle with that when you're working for somebody?
For sure. I will absolutely get some creative block. What ends up happening? Well, because I draw for work a lot, or that's what I do, and pay for work, and then I also draw for fun. So that's what I'll end up doing a lot of times is if I'm working from home that day, if I'm drawing, getting ready for my next couple projects, I'll sit there and I'll draw all day, and sometimes I will just like not vibe with a drawing I've been doing, and I'll get off of that file and I'll scroll down to a drawing I've been working on for myself, and I'll just do that. And so I'll kind of or there'll be another project that I'm have a great idea for, and I'll jump to that one to just try to, because kind of, I guess, get my headspace back right to where I'm not discouraged. And and a lot of times whenever I do that, it'll help me, with those ones that I'm more struggling with, and kind of give me inspiration or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what program do you use for one? Just because I'm curious on your iPad.
Procreate.
Procreate.
Have you used Procreate before?
No. I use all the
Adobe.
free. No, I use all free and open source.
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
So I use Krita if I do any digital art.
No.
I've done some 2D animations and stuff.
I've only used Procreate. That's my thing. I used I'd like to learn one of my next things I'd like to do is the Adobe programs, but they're
Here's
so
the thing.
confusing.
It's a scam.
Yeah.
The whole Creative Cloud thing, and you don't know any of the software.
The only one that I would use any for would be like Illustrator, because they have the
use Inkscape. That's what I use. It's I'd say it's like 90% of what Illustrator is.
I'll have to.
I'm just putting my own software interest in here now.
No, that's great because I went from like using paper and pen to just jumping into Procreate.
Yeah, I don't know if you can get it on Apple products.
Oh, yeah. See, that's the only... I have
all you got to do is put Linux on your computer and you'll be good.
See, I feel like an iPad kid most of the time, because I'm like that person who carries my iPad with me everywhere. And it's a joke because like I don't carry a purse, so hardly ever. And if I do, I have my iPad and a Rubik's Cube in the bag, and that's it. So that's what my husband always jokes with me, that I am a kid. Yeah.
So speaking of that, were you always artistic as a kid?
So it wasn't. I always loved doing art stuff, and I remember like in third grade saying I wanted to be an artist when I grew up, and that was my job goal when I was little. And when we were in like elementary school, especially, because we had an awesome art teacher. I loved her, Miss Robinson, Miss Art. I've wondered where she's at now. But whenever she actually moved to high school with us when we got to high school age, so I got to take some more of her classes. But she would let me do like big independent projects in third grade, and that was great. I loved that. But the more into high school I got, I think it was because our school was so small and I never really knew a ton of like the creative or like art opportunities you could do. I didn't ever think I was going to do anything creative for a job just because I always thought of like starving artist type thing. I wasn't going to make any money doing anything creative. So I think that was another thing in the back of my head. And so before I started painting murals, I had started trying to build a tattoo portfolio. And I was going to try to go for a tattoo apprenticeship.
Oh, yeah.
And that was one of my things in my head. I was like, that's one of the only ways you can make money as an artist. But then... Well,
another Kelly's Tattoos, another person I interviewed. Uh-huh. Yeah, there. I can get you an internship there.
I know.
Or an apprenticeship there.
And that was like the only place I thought, or like one of the only things I was thinking of that like as a creative person that you can make decent money in.
Yeah.
But then I started painting murals and I was like, no. It's not just tattoos, and I've definitely learned.
Well, I think you've also, it seems like there's been a resurgence of murals. Because, like, growing up, there weren't any murals around or anything. It seems like within the last 2 or 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
That's become the thing.
That's what I've had a ton of people ask me. They're like, do you think you're going to be able to keep doing murals forever? I'm like, I don't know if it'll be murals, but as long as they're popping right now, we'll stick with it.
Yeah.
I said that's what I love to do right now.
Make hay while the sun shines. Right?
Yes, exactly. And obviously not everything's about money, but I make quite a bit more than I did with my college degree. So that helps, and it's the thing I love.
Let's talk about that because I kind of feel like where I knew you from and everything, that probably ties into a lot of the artistic stuff.
It does.
You went to school to be a sign language interpreter.
Yep, that's what so I didn't know that's what I wanted to do. I had the TJC Promise Scholarship, so I went to TJC. I went to orientation day, not knowing what I wanted to do, and I looked at the pamphlet, and it said sign language interpreting. And I was like, how cool. I've always loved sign language, so I went to the first class.
So did you know sign language before that?
I didn't know any. I'd never met a deaf person, like nothing. I'd always just been interested in it. It wasn't ever...
It wasn't something you learned?
No, definitely not. But I learned everything from TJC, from my professors in college, and I ended up just going the full program and graduating with the degree, and I love it still. I'm big into interpreting, deaf community, all that kind of stuff. I still love it. Yeah.
Because that's where I knew you were a translator in the visual communications. Or did you do anything outside of his comm?
Oh, yeah. I interpreted all over
Yeah.
campus. I have interpreted a ton of different classes on that campus.
So do you feel like you got a bunch of free education from that too?
Oh, absolutely. That's what I used to say, that like I'm not there is that quote, I'm not a master at any of it, but I know little facts about things. I say I'm good at trivia just because I got
you're a jack of all trades, master of none, right?
That's it. That's the quote. I would interpret like these full programs for students, and at the end of it I would have professors or students in the class trying to get me to take the final just to see how I did. And it was kind of nice because I would get to go in and I would get to learn some really cool stuff, but I didn't have to do the homework. I didn't have to have to do any tests.
All the fun stuff of going to school without the
exactly.
work.
And it was really neat too because with working with like so many deaf students, I was taking interpreting programs I never ever would have taken me personally. So I did like visual communication classes, and I think probably the more interesting one I've ever done is like a CDL class or CDL program.
You can get a CDL without being able to hear?
Yeah, you can be deaf. And
I felt bad for my dad. My dad couldn't get it because he's blind in one eye.
Really?
So, yeah.
So they
I didn't know.
There's actually quite a few companies that hire big truck drivers, and a lot of them love to have deaf people work for them because they are some of the best drivers for them because they're so visual that
Yeah.
they don't get as distracted with
They
they
just
just
pay
drive. Yeah. But that I didn't know.
I guess that works out.
Yeah,
maybe.
makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. They always did really well. It was a really neat program to
So do you feel like you
interpret.
could just jump in a truck now? And
Oh,
drive it?
absolutely not. But I'll see a big truck come by and I'll see it and I'll think, because they have to do like pre-checks before CDL drivers get in their trucks. They have to go around the truck, do their whole thing. And I'll have a truck drive by and I'll be like running through a couple of their pre-checks in my head, which I absolutely would fail the test if I got put in a truck right now. But I do know some of the fun facts about it.
That's like the emergency situation. You're prepared for that.
Absolutely. Well, and it's fun too because I got to interpret like a lot of like science classes or like A&P stuff. Mm-hmm. And like I am not that person. I'm not like the medical field.
But do you feel like you at least absorbed some of it?
Oh, for sure. Like I understand like certain things so much better because of those classes. Like last night me and some of my friends were talking about like celiac disease and they were like, what is that? And I said, actually, I interpreted a class one time and they explained it and I never forgot. So then we ended up talking about it. So it's like I've learned such fun things from these classes.
I think that's like with all the people I've interviewed and stuff,
Yes.
that's the most important thing is just being curious.
Oh, for sure.
Just absorbing things.
That's my favorite. It's getting to like meet so many different people and be in different situations. Yeah.
So while we're talking about you absorbing things, I met you in a VisCom. Mm-hmm. I think it was just intro to digital design or something like that. Mm-hmm. So how much of like interpreting for those do you think translated over to like, did you learn all those rules of design and stuff from that? Because your stuff is very graphically pleasing.
Yes, for sure. So I definitely, even like, I don't know if you remember this from your programs, like yesterday I was posting something or putting something up and I was like, oh, rule of thirds in my head. And I was thinking of like...
rule of thirds was just like beat into you in any of the creative classes.
For sure. So like I had that in mind and then I for sure took a lot of it over. Yeah. And I tried to like absorb as much as I could in those classes too because... I had the same camera as in the photography classes as well. So like I was over there trying to like figure out what like aperture was and like the f-stop or all those things. And so I definitely tried my best, but those programs are difficult. Like, and they're hard. So I tried though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, that's kind of great though that you actually got paid to learn.
Oh, for sure.
Because and then you're also helping other people.
Yeah, and it was funny one day in one of the classes. It was it was one of the VisCom classes too, and the student was needing someone's attention like across the room or something, and I think everyone was just getting to work on their own that day or they were having lab time or something, and the deaf student wasn't able to get their attention, and I like turned and I said their name out loud. So it'd be like if I was trying to get your attention, I'd be like, hey Isaac, can you come here real quick?
Yeah.
And the person like their head turned and they realized I knew their name, and someone else in the class said, do you know like all of our names? And I like went around the whole like college class.
You're not a real person, right?
No, but it was so funny because like I turned, I looked, and I named every person in the class. And I told them what all of their degrees were, and they all just looked at me and they're like, we don't even know like what your name is. And I was like, exactly. But I'm just supposed to be a little hidden thing in the corner. You're not supposed to realize I'm here. So
you'd probably be good at like espionage and stuff too.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's your other career there.
For sure. I think I do really well.
So, you mentioned mental health, how that's a big part of that. So how does that tie into it? Because you briefly said something about it. Yeah. But so, if you don't mind.
No, yeah, for sure. Tend to be a really outspoken person about mental health. I'll run into someone say hi, how are you? I'm like, how's your mental health? You doing good? But so actually, it was before I even started full time, before I quit my job last year. One of my first things that kind of took off online was a mental health mural. And it was, I did an interview with like KLTV and Tyler and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I still haven't painted it. I kind of put it on the back burner because it's a special little project I have. And I want to make sure it's all right before I'm not just jumping into it. But it is one of those things that I'm really outspoken about, and I try to take into my art career as well. So like do a mental health mural, something, a suicide awareness, and try to incorporate that into my art. I try to make all of the art very bright, happy, good stuff for mental health. And something as well as my painting that we're doing is we're about to launch a nonprofit here in the next little bit, as soon as we get that like approval from the state.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this. State's not just the fastest. I'm sure you've heard.
Our government is extremely efficient and fast at everything they do.
You're so right.
And
they're really good.
They should be put in charge of everything.
I totally agree. And the IRS is the most easy
they're really
entity
great
to work with.
They're great, and they're so efficient, and
they're really nice on the phone.
They definitely have never caused the death of innocent people.
Absolutely. I have just like so I talked to some people about starting a nonprofit, like what went into that and like the challenges of it, and I had so many people tell me it was like extremely challenging, and that they knew a lot of people who weren't successful.
Yes.
And here I am, like almost a year later, still we just need one piece of paper to come back, and we will be good to go on the nonprofit. But the nonprofit is all backed with the goal of more of a preventative approach for mental health. Mm-hmm. And so it's not necessarily it's called the Shine Foundation, so it's not necessarily like providing mental health resources for people, but the goal is to keep everyone try to help everyone in East Texas to take care of their mental health before you need those resources, to where you're in like a crisis situation, to where you actually would need to like go have mental health help. But more like, this is more like a preventative approach. But we're doing like community recognition, doing community scholarships, trying to get resources to more rural areas, because Tyler has some really great mental health resources, but like with being from like a smaller town, we don't know about those resources.
You've only got the mental hospital.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not necessarily open for the public. But so that it's something that I've always been a big advocate, but
so I was just wondering, like, is this does it come from like some personal?
Well,
like not necessarily you even, but like, was it some like how did this come to the front of your mind? Why is it such a big motivator for you?
Well, it had a couple different things. So it started out, we have been given a scholarship to the high schools in Rusk and Jacksonville for the past 2 years. And it just goes to one high school senior, because that's all we could afford. Yeah. It's just $1,000 that went to each of the students. And there was no strings attached. It wasn't anything. You didn't have to go to college. You didn't have to go to. You could go to trades. You didn't have, there wasn't any special requirements. The only thing was that you were just a good person, and so it was nomination based. So we get all the people in the school community, students, to like nominate one of their peers, someone that's just kind of deserving. Like they're just kind and they do good stuff in their school and they deserve to just be recognized for it. So that's what we've done. And that kind of came from when I was like growing up, I always kind of recognized that, and I always tried to be that person for people. My mom died when I was little, so I always kind of kept that in my head, that you didn't know what other people had going on at their house. So that's kind of been the thought, is like, let's recognize the the people who are doing that for others. And not just that, but the mental health stuff came into play. Especially, I had a friend die from suicide last year. So that is another one that's really been a big motivator for the nonprofit. So we're other than the community scholarships and the high school scholarships, we're really going to push for mental health advocacy for people like my friend that didn't deserve to die from suicide. And we also, I don't know if you've heard this, but there's I think it's the Northeast Texas health official has put out that Smith County has the highest suicide rate for the 25 most populous counties in Texas.
Really?
So that just shows you how bad mental health is, especially here in East Texas. So
I think it's a lot of, we're just kind of so separated now. I don't feel like many people have that community where they feel like they can just talk to somebody or something.
Definitely. And I think a lot of it is where we are and where we live, especially for guys. It's very much a pick yourself up and take care. Don't put it on anyone else. And
that's I was actually talking to a friend about this last night because he was talking about his mental health sort of stuff. I've dealt with anxiety and depression before, and so have other people in my family, and just friends, so many people I know. And I feel like for guys, there is that pick yourself up by the bootstraps and stuff. But even now, when now it's very popular to talk about mental health and all this stuff, but I feel like there's not much reaching out towards guys.
Yes, it's such a big thing.
Yeah, because the way, I don't want to sound too sexist here, but
I totally get it.
The way mental health is presented, it's
women can be vulnerable, and
it's very much geared towards women and stuff, and guys just socially work different, and I don't feel like there's much outreach at any meaningful level towards men's mental health.
Absolutely,
at this point.
Absolutely. And so my friend that died, he, my husband was his emergency contact on everything, and we went through a whole about a year before he died. He had attempted 2 other times before he was actually successful, and I was so confused throughout the whole process because so after his first attempt, we were up at the hospital, and I was just really, really shocked because he had just attempted to take his own life, and they did a 45-second psych evaluation, and they said he was not suicidal. And I was like, guys, what are we talking about? He actually he didn't just it wasn't a joke. No, he actually tried. So we were, I left there, and he also wasn't insured. So they released him, and I started calling every mental health or counselor that I could find. I was really looking in Tyler, and I was wanting them to do it an inpatient type thing. And I was told by 2 separate places that because he didn't have insurance that they weren't taking him, and it was this is not illegal. This doesn't make sense.
That's the thing. I think for one, just because of how our healthcare system has been set up,
it's horrible.
It's if possible made mental health care worse, and
it's awful.
And then also I feel like there needs to be more charities and religious organizations because a lot of the times, I just don't know if it's people who haven't gone through it or what, but it is that pick yourself up by the bootstraps, kind of where it's not okay, this could be a chemical imbalance, this could be so many different things, and sometimes when I've felt depression, which it hasn't been for a while or whatever, it's there's absolutely no reason for me to feel this way.
Right? Yeah, it's just a thing. So my friend, he had drug abuse problems and alcohol abuse problems,
which definitely makes it worse.
Yes, and absolutely. And but what I ended up finding a child counselor who didn't specialize in any of his like needs, but I think I just sounded like so desperate on the phone. I was like, will you please see him?
Yeah.
So she did. She discounted her rate because he wasn't insured. And she called me afterwards and she said, she's like, I will keep seeing him. I'll do whatever like he wants. She said, but I just want to tell y'all because like he had his attempt. She said most people who attempt will reattempt within the next 4 months and will be successful. And it's so crazy, like thinking back on it now in hindsight, because she was 100% correct. Like he was successful. I think it took about 6 months after that. But so now that I'm in like the nonprofit world, and I just finished a nonprofit advanced certification in Tyler, and now that I'm involved in all of that stuff, I realized there are a lot more resources than we think that are nonprofits and charities and in Tyler. Yeah. And there are things available, but in the more rural areas, like especially even just a couple towns over from Tyler, I had no idea. If I would have just known about a couple of these places, like I think that it would have given him like a chance to.
Yeah. So are you just is it you specifically building this charity or?
Yes. Yeah. So the reason we started with the scholarships, and we go to the banquets, we present them, and we explain why these people are getting them.
Yeah.
And we've had such a good reaction like at those banquets and the recipients that it kind of felt like, I don't know a good word, but it felt dumb to just try to keep it like secretive and to not like so that's kind of where the motivation came from, was let's
I guess my question was, because you say we, so is it you and your husband? Is it you and multiple people?
Yes, we have a board.
Okay.
And so because we're just starting out, the board in air quotes, it is a legit board
in a big black room with
absolutely there's
table.
A really big table. We have a big picture of each of us on the wall. No, it's my husband, my best friend, my dad, and his girlfriend is our board right now. So it is a legitimate board, but we as we grow we'll obviously phase everyone out.
So I guess, is it just, are y'all just trying to bring more awareness to what's already there? Are y'all trying to reach out and find some way to get into the more rural communities?
It's that. So that's more like the mental health side of it, and we're gonna try to really push for like all those resources, even like work with the hospitals too. Because when I was up there with a friend, I was asking them, like, what can I do? Like, where can I go? Do y'all have anything I can do? They were like, no, like we don't have, but there's 211 in Tyler, which is a resource center for things like that. And it's just a number you call 211. I had no idea. If I would have known that, that'd have been so helpful.
Why do you think the hospitals wouldn't, do you think that's like some kind of legal thing? They can't suggest those things?
They can. I think it's just not there. So I think that's one of our things that like, we got to do something about that. Like, and I know we weren't an anomaly. Like, I know that there's got to be stuff happening in places like that all the time. So if there just would have been something like that. So we're doing that for the mental health side of it, but then also how the high school scholarships, and then we're also going to do community recognition. So like, it can be someone who like works at a gas station, or someone, literally an everyday person that just like kind of puts some good out there. We're going to do some community recognition for that once a month. But the kind of driving thing behind it is, if we put out there that we gave a community recognition to, say, a fast food worker, and then another fast food worker sees it, in their mind they're going to say, oh, they're recognizing us. They notice that we're here. They notice our actions like while we're working. So then hopefully it'll kind of like start a little trend to where it'll make people internally have that in their mind, to where they will be more kind every day. Same thing with high school students. If if a new freshman comes in and they think like, oh, there's that scholarship senior year that I can just get handed $1,000 for being a good person. Like, I'm going to do that. So if they walk into the cafeteria and, you know, see someone sitting there by themselves in their head, and I don't know if ethics would think like, oh, money's that's not a great way, but I think
it's hard to find another way to motivate.
Yes. It's like if you have a 15-year-old that walks into a cafeteria, sees a kid sitting there in their head, if they're like, oh, like there's that scholarship I can, or like I people might recognize me doing this. But scientifically it is proven that you being kind to someone is going to make you feel better. Mm-hmm. It's going to make the person that you're sitting next to feel better. And it's going to make, at the end of the day, like no matter what that motivating factor was, you both feel better. Your mental health is better. And if we have more people in East Texas doing those kind of things, I think it might take a little bit, but I think it's gonna help.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. Everybody thinks that there needs to be some big change. There's always this great big thing. People don't realize just everyday things.
Yes, that's
how much different that can make somebody's life.
So I read a book called The Midnight Library. I don't know who the author is, but I read it not long after my friend died last year, and I didn't know what this book was about. If I would have, it's a book about suicide, and so I was like, this is not a great book to read right now. But I've never had a book make me like have such like an eye-opening thing. Little spoiler about this book real quick. It's a woman. She's having a day. Her day's just not going real great. She's had like some events happen, but she goes home and her neighbor that she feeds she gets their mail for them. It's an old man. He tells her, he's like, oh, hey, I don't need you to get my mail for me anymore. I've got it taken care of. And she's like, okay, good. And she turns around and she walks up to her apartment, and the book is telling you what she's thinking. And she says, like, nobody needs me anymore. Yeah. It's like official. And she attempts suicide after that. And so when I read that, I was like, it wasn't like a big thing for her. It wasn't this huge situation that like caused her. It was like just this one little thing. It was just an everyday thing that like affected her differently.
That's I'm just thinking off of what I thought when you that's a big thing is find somebody finding that purpose. Like for people helping other people is a big thing with mental health.
Absolutely.
Because then you're not just thinking about yourself.
And I think that's kind of like behind it.
And then also just everyday things, you never know what big of a difference that's going to make in somebody's life.
Right.
Just doing these little things, and we need that human connection too.
Exactly. Well, and it's I don't know, like if you can think of anyone like I know there's like places I frequent pretty often, and there'll just be like an employee there that is just brightens everyone's day for no reason. But like I don't think like that person probably just doesn't even realize like the effect that can have on another person. You know? So it's
or even
like that.
Even the opposite. Just think like I don't know how many times I've been somewhere and just like some person there brings everything down there.
Oh,
where it could have.
Yes.
You know? So you never know what your little actions are gonna do to affect.
Yes.
You know.
And it stinks too, because like I don't know if you have stuff like this, but a good example. I used to work at Roadhouse. That was my college job. I was a server for 3 years in college, and it was fun. I liked working there, but I would never be a server again. Just putting that out there. But there were people who would just come in, and like here I am, like 4 years later after that job, I still think back to these people who were rude to me or said something negative, and like 4 years later, I'm still thinking about those people that did something negative. And it's kind of like that. It's your negativity sticks too. As much as your positivity, your negative will stick on people.
So The moral is just do little things and you'll make the world better.
Just exactly. It's
Yeah.
not like doing big extraordinary things. It's just doing that's our mission statement is recognizing and promoting everyday kindness in East Texas.
Okay, so I don't think either I didn't hear you say it or I didn't ask it. What's the name of the organization?
The Shine Foundation.
The Shine Foundation?
Yes. So we stuck with that because and that was a whole process to get that name, by the way, because you got to register it with the state. There was another nonprofit here in Texas called Shines with an S. We had to get them to. It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
But the reason
the Shiners stepped in. And then
it was a whole lawsuit. No, I'm just kidding. But we did that because it's kind of a play on words because our high school scholarship is called Sunshine. So that's like our scholarship portion. Ray of Shine is our mental health portion. And that is because my friend who died, his name was Raymond. So Ray of Shine.
Yeah.
And then we have like our Outshine things for our community recognition stuff. And that's just like where we're starting out. We have big goals for what we'd like to do and what we'd like to expand to. But that's what we're starting out with. Community stuff and just trying to get people especially in East Texas.
Yeah.
Back happy again.
Do y'all have a website and everything?
Yes. So we haven't launched it yet because we're waiting to get our stuff from the state.
Yeah.
But we got one.
It's going to be a while before this episode comes out just because
cool.
I'm trying to compile quite a few of them. So whenever you do have that, just text it to me and I'll link it down in the subscription.
Yes, I'll absolutely do that.
Description, not subscription.
Yeah,
But subscribe.
Yeah, for sure. That too. On the website, like it's super user friendly. It has just up in the corner it says there's a nomination tab and you can click on it and it'll say community recognition and then there's a high school. So like if you have a high school senior that you know of that just deserves to have $1,000 handed to him just for being a good kid, for putting good stuff out there, you nominate them, and we have our whole criteria process, and we have committee people we bring on to pick those recipients. But we've had 4 recipients so far. That was when we were private, and now we're going to nonprofit. So
yeah.
It'll be fun. I'm excited about that.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else you want to plug or talk about before we wrap this up? Because I think this has been a great conversation.
No,
so
I've
far.
had such a good time. Yeah. I think that's it. I put more art out there, be a nice person, and I think that's about it. Learn some sign language.
Yeah,
those are all good ones.
So, it's Odessa Helm art on Instagram, right?
Yes, yeah.
And then anywhere else people can find you?
No, I'm not quite to the website part yet.
Yeah.
I'm working on getting a website, but I also have a Facebook. Not as active on the Facebook because I've never had a Facebook before, so I'm trying to do the business one, but my Instagram is like my main thing you can see me at. So Odessa Helm art.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming in and talking about what you do and your charity you're starting.
Yes.
And I look forward to seeing how it goes.
Yes, it was so good talking with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, hi. You made it to the end of the video. That's pretty cool. You must have liked it. I had a fun time recording it. I hope you did like it. Well, if you liked it, you might as well share it with other people. You might as well like the video. Go ahead and subscribe because I make videos like that all the time. So, yeah.